Thank you for tuning in today to learn about shared inbox configurations and how they can enhance privacy compliance as well as clinic efficiency and effectiveness. My name is Jeff McKay from Brightsquid, and with me, as usual, is Mark Ayer. Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm good. Afternoon, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well.
As we get started here today, we're going to go through some points about shared inbox. Not everybody really knows how it works, what it's for. There's lots of different ways that it can be used, and we'll go through that, and Mark will show you how. So what does the shared inbox do? It's really about shared responsibility for individual accountability and individual accountability, which is really kind of what happens in healthcare generally, right? Everybody's got a shared responsibility to address patient health and improve overall patient health, but there's individual accountability for everybody's own sort of specialization within that broad team. And shared inbox does a lot of things in terms of the benefit. So we can help enhance teamwork within the clinic. We'll show how that works. Provides unified communication channels, so we don't have to worry about a fax came in and somebody responded by email or phone or mail, and we don't know how to piece all that stuff together. One person's doing one thing, one person's doing another thing, and we can't see who did what. It enables compliance with privacy regulations, which do require you to be able to identify individuals who accessed which information. So you're going to need to prove that out. Who specifically saw what, instead of which account looked at what, and then saying, well, there's 5 people who have access and we can't prove who did what there. It also strengthens security because sharing passwords is a risk. The more people that know a password, obviously, the more people can find out what that password is. It helps organize communications around clinic structure, so you can have different shared inboxes, and a lot of clinics are doing it. We'll show you what they're doing. And it helps improve account management, so you can provide or remove access for shared inboxes from different users as necessary. Talking about account management, it really is important to privacy compliance. Every privacy regulation in North America says that you have to be able to show all access to patient information trackable to an individual authorized user. That's how you know if there was a breach or information was accessed inappropriately, which would have to be acted on. If you can't identify that, it's really hard to track if and when information was accessed by someone who shouldn't. And access also should be role-based. So someone based on their roles should have access to a certain amount of information and not other stuff. Shared accounts limits that accountability in the event of an incident. Like I said, you don't know which one of the people who has the password to that account was in at that time and did the thing that was wrong. And you might not even know who has which passwords, because someone might show up and just verbally, someone says, here's this password, write it down. And maybe they keep it in their wallet and their wallet got stolen and somebody logged in. It makes multi-factor authentication very difficult when passwords are shared, which is likely coming to be a requirement. It certainly is in HIPAA. That is something that is being enacted in HIPAA. And password management is termination or shifting of people throughout the organization. If someone doesn't work here anymore, what do we do with that password? We've talked to clinics who say, well, we think we changed the password when someone on the team leaves, but we're not certain of that. So that gets pretty risky. Some communication challenges that do rise that shared inbox tries to address are, that closed loop, right? Who responded, who did what? Have we acted on this, and where is the response? The privacy compliance aspect of sharing passwords, that sort of thing, or even using systems that aren't compliant. Inbox visibility is the person where the messages go, who has the login. Are they in today? Are they in this week? Different account management challenges, which user has what, how do I facilitate getting people the right access, all that sort of thing. Is it appropriate? It's difficult to track if we're sharing things and have all these accounts all over the place. And then the multi-channel conversations, like I said, are we talking about the same thing through fax, mail, email, phone? And that's really hard to manage. And then shift accommodation. So back to sort of that inbox visibility. If someone's not in on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, how do we deal with that? We can't respond as a team if it's individual access only. And then we have to make sure that we do have that auditability, as I said. How does shared inbox work? Assigned users manage the inbox, sending and receiving as a team. They're identified as users, like I said, but the message comes from the organization. So responses are sent from the clinic with the sender identified, so you can see who on the team actually sent the message. So that's manageable, and that shows up on the patient or the recipient as well. Mark will show us how that works. And users can be assigned to multiple inboxes, and everybody receives a notification. Optionally, you can turn that off. when a new message comes in. So we're not flying blind or having to log in every once in a while to see if there's a message now or not. Everybody will get that notice. And then individual user access logs are available so we can see who did what. And then it makes password sharing unnecessary, and I'll say that a lot. So the first implementation of shared inbox is clinic inbox. One shared inbox, messages go to and from the clinic. Messages can be addressed to the clinic name. So here's some examples. I went into the compose screen and typed in Brightsquid. That message will show up at the Brightsquid shared inbox. Same with family dentistry in Orlando, Florida. If I select that organization, the message will go to the clinic's shared inbox. We can have an inbox for each clinician. So you have a team that serves that works for the clinician and supports the clinician. Those messages addressed to the clinician name will show up in that shared inbox. And same with responses. So some examples of this there's loads of them in the directory in Brightsquid. Dr. Prad's nurses, Dr. Wilson team. Sometimes clinics list out all of the doctors associated with that inbox. Crowfoot Village has color teams where specific doctors work and patients know which team they're on, so they can address the team. So you can categorize it that way as well. Sub-organizations, so specializations within the clinic or departments within the clinic. Some examples are there's a dermatology clinic on our system who has their larger organization with an inbox, but then they also have one for the wart clinic, and they have one for the acne clinic and eczema clinic, and they have one for patient services. And a weight loss clinic has a specific inbox for referrals management, or the medical team, or the nutrition team, or behavioral medicine, depending on who the sender or recipient is working with. That helps organize those messages better. And then also location inbox. So you could have a shared inbox for different locations. That can happen in the same way. So Argyle OMS, for example, has actually a few more locations than this, but they set it up like this. So Argyle, Canada, or Argyle, Orleans, whoever is in the location would log into that shared inbox, and they can switch, and Mark will show you how that works. Or you can even label it like front desk at this location, and that Pinnacle also has different ones for identifying administrator or something like that if somebody had to address a specific concern to a person. When we ask clinics about what value is in shared inboxes, and we said if you could set up a shared inbox for every clinician or department or team, would you do it? And 2/3 of clinics said, yeah, I would really find value in that. That would be helpful. When we asked if incoming messages could automatically be sorted by clinician for staff to address as a team, most clinics agreed. So that's about 80%, I think, of clinics responding agreed with that. And that can be achieved through shared inboxes. When we're looking at what would be most helpful for your clinic, what would be great? So 34% of people picked a shared inbox for each clinician. 25% said organizing it, customize this folder. So we want to manage it by team and then team inbox sort of thing. And we want to set up inboxes for what makes sense for us, or we want to use it for each team. And then we get into other things like custom labels, which we do get requests for, but you can see that a shared inbox specific to a team or a clinician is more valuable in the eyes of a clinic than something like labels for messages. And then one last thing before I turn things over to Mark, all messages sent from our clinic shared inbox should indicate which clinician they're sent on behalf of. So that functionality doesn't exist in the shared inbox right now, unless you set up a shared inbox specific to that clinician. And once you add a clinician to your account, you do have the entitlement to create a shared inbox for that clinician or for a department. Every clinician seat sort of comes with a new shared inbox. Mark, with that, I tried to go fast, and hopefully we've got enough time for you to get through what we need to look at today.
So I'm going to go through a demonstration today. I'm going to show, first of all, what I'm already showing. This is the point of view from the clinic, and I'm going to show you the 3 basic steps for configuring the shared inbox so that messages can be delivered to the shared inbox, and then the appropriate members of the staff are aware of and have access to the shared inbox, and that they get notified when messages are delivered there. After that, I'm going to switch over to show you the point of view of someone addressing a message to this clinic, so you can see what the shared inbox experience looks like from, in this case, a patient's point of view. So all of you are already familiar with the basics of Brightsquid Secure Mail. You've all seen this before, but this is a quick overview. So on my landing page, after I log into my Brightsquid account, I find myself here in my Brightsquid inbox. And up here in the top left-hand corner are the 2 inboxes that I have access to, because everyone has access to their own private My Inbox. And authorized members of an organization will also be able to see the shared inbox. And I can toggle back and forth, and you can clearly see that there's a different set of messages in these two inboxes. Now, as Jeff was saying, the My Inbox is private and visible only to me. I'm currently logged in as a user named Dr. Cam Spine. This is Cam Spine's private inbox. No one has access to these messages in any way unless they break the rules by sharing their password, which is exactly what we're trying to avoid. Shared passwords, as Jeff said, are less secure passwords, and that's why we built the shared inbox. Brightsquid Secure Mail is meant to accommodate people going on vacation, for example. So this My Inbox here, you can see I've got a couple of messages, but up in the shared inbox, there's a lot more messages, and I'll show you now how that works. So first step is I'm going to go to settings and then over here to clinic members. Now, as I mentioned, I'm logged in as Cam. So I'm Dr. Cam Spine. I'm the owner of the clinic called the Spinal Network. And in the Brightsquid account, I'm labeled as a physician of general surgery. I'm the administrator of the Brightsquid account, and I have access to the shared inbox. In order for shared inbox to work, the first most important rule is everyone should be logging into Brightsquid as themselves under their own account. And you can clearly see here that we have about 8 people that work in the spinal network. Some of them are physicians, some of them are MOAs, and so on. Each of those people have a different job role, obviously. Some of them are doctors and some of them aren't. But also within Brightsquid, their job role is clearly defined by the access that they have in the Brightsquid accounts. So you can see here, for example, in this column on the right-hand side, some of them have a checkbox next to shared inbox like Kira does, but George and Serge do not. That means that those individuals will not see this shared inbox when they log into their own account. So when George logs in, all he sees is My Inbox. Now, interestingly, George may never get a message to My Inbox, and that is a very important thing for some doctors who, let's face it, would rather be busy doing doctory stuff as opposed to dealing with incoming secure mail messages. We thought of that too, so we can route those messages to the shared inbox. So let's first take a look at Kira here as an example of one of my MOAs. Now, Kira is also an administrator, and she already has access to the shared inbox, as I can see here. But if I expand her profile and I scroll down about 2/3 of the way, you'll see a couple of very important checkboxes. The first one is Enable Shared Inbox. This checkbox here is turned on, which tells me that when Kira logs into her account, she, like me, will be able to see the shared inbox and the messages that are delivered therein. A little bit further down on the page, these two options under Receive Messages. Now remember, we're looking at Kira's profile right now, and you can see that this first checkbox that says Allow patients to message this user is unchecked, it's blank. And this other one that says Allow professionals to message this user is checked on. What that tells me is if a patient attempts to address a message to Kira, because this box is unchecked, the system is going to instead automatically route that message to the shared inbox instead. However, conversely, if a professional user, like another doctor or an MOA from another clinic, sends a message to Kira, that will be delivered to her private My Inbox. And I'm going to turn that option off now because Kira doesn't need to get messages delivered to her private inbox because all of the conversation that Kira does is from the clinic standpoint. So this way, no messages will effectively ever be delivered to Kira's private My Inbox. And that's how we would like it to be. That's the preferred stance, because this way, if Kira goes on vacation for 2 weeks, we don't want messages going into her inbox where they won't be addressed until she gets back. Every single message that someone ever tries to send to Kira will now go to the shared inbox for the organization. And just to remind you, that shared inbox is currently monitored by these 4 people. One of them happens to be Kira, but also Mr. Ken and Ms. Megan and Dr. Cam. So when messages get routed there, those 4 people can deal with it. The other 4, Sydney Payne, Serge, and George, don't bother themselves with the shared inbox. That's not part of their job function. So that's who has access to the shared inbox. And I talked about how Kira can close off her private inbox to ensure that messages get delivered there. So now going forward, anyone who attempts to send a message to Kira will instead have their message routed to the shared inbox. Now, these 4 people, let's call them the shared inbox team, when they log into their Brightsquid account, they will all be able to see and look into the shared inbox. Now, I kind of glossed over it a moment ago, but let's go back to Kira's account. And if I expand her profile again, down here, right above the receive messages section that I just talked about, is the email notifications section. And you can see that these 2 boxes are checked on. And so this is telling me that emails will be delivered to Kira's email address, which is moa@brightsquid.com. But the idea here is that Kira, or me as the clinic administrator, can turn on or off the email notifications with regard to both her private My Inbox as well as the shared inbox for this organization. Now, I don't recommend turning these notifications off. This is the only way that we're going to notify Kira that a new message has been delivered to one of the inboxes that she has been tasked with monitoring. So if you turn these email notifications off, Kira won't get those notifications, and there's a chance that a message from a patient may not be responded to in a timely manner. But I wanted to show this feature because it's all part and parcel of managing and configuring your shared inbox to ensure that messages are dealt with in a timely fashion. Now, if we go back over to the shared inbox, these are all the messages that have been routed to this organization because the tools on the configuration have routed messages here. Now, here's the interesting part. I'm going to change, well, here's one of the interesting parts. Let's face it, they're all interesting. I'm going to change my point of view from that of my healthcare clinic, and I'm going to bring over a window from my pretend patient. So this is my patient, Adam. And you can see in Adam's inbox, he has received a message from a clinic called the Spinal Network. And the message, this particular message from the Spinal Network, you'll see how it highlights that it was the organization, the Spinal Network, that sent it. And it just so happens that the person who sent it was Dr. Cam Spine, as opposed to Kira or Ken or one of the other people at that organization who are in the shared inbox team. This is what patients are kind of expecting, if I may, where they get a message from an organization, not specifically from a person. Now, we include the person's name. Jeff talked a lot about auditability. That's very important. But the feeling to the patient is this is a message from the organization, from the clinic, as opposed to being something specific from the doctor themselves. And in this example, it just says, please send us a photo of your insurance card, which is something that our patients do all the time on Brightsquid. And so now Adam can just reply to this message, attach a copy of his insurance card through this button down here, and send it back. Now you'll notice that the message when I clicked reply was automatically addressed to the shared inbox, not to Dr. Cam. So the message here clearly indicates to the sender that this message is going to the organization, the shared inbox, and not directly to Dr. Cam for his eyes only, so to speak. So there's a couple different ways that this may manifest when patients are addressing messages. So in the reply, because we've already set up the shared inbox rules on the share at the Spinal Network, any replies automatically get sent there. But what if the patient composes a message from scratch? Maybe they're not replying and they just wake up one morning and they want to ask their doctor a question. Well, if they click compose and they go to address a message, and let's say they want to send the message to, let me think, what was the doctor's name there that didn't use secure mail? George, I think. So if I type in George's name and I search the Brightsquid directory, there he is. There's Dr. George Carlin. Dr. George Carlin works at the Spinal Network. I can see that he's a doctor, the little medical bag next to his name. I've confirmed that that's the name I was looking for, and that's where he works. Here's another George at another company, but he's not important to me right now. But if I want to send a message to George, here's what happens. When I choose George, because George has closed off his My Inbox, I get notified that my message is instead going to the clinic. So this tells me as the patient, as the sender, that the message is going to the organization, and I would just assume and make the assumption as a patient, oh, this is Dr. George's staff, the MOA, the office manager, whatever. That's fine. It's not an error or a warning. It's just a notification to the sender to confirm with them that the message they're sending is going to the clinic, not the specific person they chose who happens to work at that clinic. And 99 times out of 100, people just move right past that and just carry right on. There's not an issue with that. So now I can just type my message and then click send. And of course, that message is now being delivered to the shared inbox at the spinal network. There's one other thing I wanted to show here quickly, and I know we're running short on time. So if I go to the professional directory down here on the left-hand side, and everyone on Brightsquid has access to this professional directory, so they can look you up. In this demonstration environment, it's a small community as opposed to the hundreds of thousands that are in the Brightsquid community in the production environment. But here you can see I've already searched for, and I have on my buddy list, the spinal network. So this is the clinic where Dr. George works. And I can also see it's the clinic where Dr. Cam works, and Dr. Sydney, and there's Megan, and there's our friend Kira. These are all the people that work in the organization, the members of the organization. And when I'm here, there's a send message button. This secure mail button right here is the send message button to send it to this clinic's shared inbox. The patient doesn't really know the term shared inbox. They're just looking at this as, I'm sending my message to this doctor's office. Now, I can select one of the individuals. Let's pick on George again, because he's my favorite. If we click on George, we'll see his profile, but you'll notice that the send button has changed shape. It doesn't say send a message to George. It says send a message to the spinal network. So the same idea here, which is because Dr. George has closed off his My Inbox, any message composed to him through any fashion is instead automatically routed to his staff. And I think if I go back and just show one more thing here on the professional directory, if I had selected Dr. Cam instead, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to get the same experience. Yeah, Dr. Cam has also closed off his shared inbox. So anytime that I try to send a message to a specific person, it's going to be routed to the shared inbox because that's how the spinal network has configured their organization. I hope that this has been helpful and useful, and you can now get your shared inbox to be more central to your organization, and you can configure the appropriate people to have access to the shared inbox and deal with messages in a timely fashion.
That's great. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, very, very thorough as always. Shared inbox was originally created by, for us because a few clinics were saying, hey, we need to be able to track who's doing what, and using individual accounts for that with a shared password isn't really feasible. So it is a really great tool that does create a lot of value in terms of helping clinics be compliant, but also manage those messages that are coming in and be more efficient and effective with communications. So that's really good. Now we do have a couple questions we'll get to really quick. The first one here is, Mark, how do we get that set up? How do we use multiple shared inboxes and configure that within our Brightsquid account?
Right, so I kept it simple with a single shared inbox for today's demonstration, just to save a little bit of time. But if you have a need for multiple shared inboxes, then we would be able to create a secondary shared inbox organization for you. So you can contact our support team at the address on the screen, support.brightsquid.com. And we can take a look at your current configuration and customize that to your specific needs for an additional shared inbox if that's what is determined to be required.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, you are entitled to one for every clinician who's registered on your account.
Right.
If you need to add a clinician, we can do that. It's quite a simple mechanism where we do have the concept of members belonging to multiple organizations, and there's a little drop in the top right of your account that then you can switch between shared inboxes. So there's no confusion looking at your screen and which one you're in, and it's clearly labeled, so you can manage things that way. That's what we've got time for today. So Mark, thanks again, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks everybody. Have a great summer.